I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to end up in a situation like this. Sitting in my car, half naked, blood on my lip, staring at my trembling hands on the steering wheel. The street lights outside cast long, eerie shadows across the pavement, and the night air does little to cool the burning sting on my face. I press my tongue against the inside of my cheek, wincing at the sharp pain. She hit me hard. Hard enough to make my vision blur for a second. It had started out as an ordinary night. Dinner at her parents' place, small talk over dry chicken, her father and I laughing over some old home videos. I thought it was harmless, joking about outdated fashion choices and oversized noses. But something in her shifted on the drive home. She went quiet at first, staring out the window, fingers tapping against her knee. Then, out of nowhere, she turned off the music. "You and your perfect little family," she spat, her voice sharp as broken glass. "It's creepy how close you are. It's disgusting." I frowned, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. "What?" "Because I get along with my parents. Because you act like some sitcom character from the *King 90s. You make me sick." I knew better than to argue. I knew better than to engage. So I let it go. I let her vent. I let her say whatever she needed to say because I thought, maybe if I didn't react, she'd run out of steam. I was wrong. I barely got through a chapter of my book before she started again. Something about how I looked at her the wrong way, or didn't respond fast enough, or whatever excuse she needed to justify the storm brewing inside her. I didn't even see it coming. 1 second I was reading. The next, my head snapped to the side, pain exploding across my jaw. Then another. And another. She was fast, furious, and relentless. I scrambled off the couch, heart pounding, hands raised in surrender. She wasn't done. She slapped me again, open palm straight across the mouth, sending a metallic taste flooding my tongue. Then she did the worst thing of all. She blocked the door. "Stay the * away from me," she shrieked, making sure the neighbors could hear. But I was the one trying to leave. I stood there for a second, my pulse pounding in my ears, my breath coming too fast. The front door was wide open, the cold night air spilling in, but she was in front of it, arms spread, making sure I had no way out. "Where the * do you think you're going?" she screamed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My jaw throbbed, my lips stung, and my mind raced to process how the night had spiraled into this. "Get away from me!" She shrieked again, loud enough that I was sure someone somewhere had to hear it. But I was the one trying to leave. I took a careful step back, hands still raised, my eyes locked on hers. She was breathing hard, wild-eyed, her hands clenched into fists. There was nowhere to go, not without pushing past her, and I knew better than to touch her, even to defend myself. That was exactly what she wanted. A reason to scream louder, to twist the story, to make me the villain. My phone. I glanced around and spotted it on the floor near the coffee table, face down, the screen still glowing. I had no idea if it was cracked, but right now I didn't care. I just needed to get to it. I took another step back, slow, careful, making it look like I was retreating instead of angling toward it. She watched me, her chest rising and falling, her fingers twitching like she was debating whether to swing again. Another step. I was almost there. Then, without warning, she lunged. She snatched my phone before I could grab it, and in one swift motion, hurled it across the room. It hit the wall with a sickening crack and dropped to the floor. "Are you *King kidding me?" I blurted out before I could stop myself. "Wrong move." Her hand came at me again, but this time I dodged. I wasn't sticking around for more. I turned and sprinted for the back door. She screamed something behind me, but I didn't stop. I shoved the door open, bolted barefoot across the freezing concrete patio, and didn't stop until I was in my car. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and sat there, my chest heaving. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The house loomed in my rearview mirror, her silhouette still in the doorway. I was in my car, but I wasn't safe. I had nowhere to go. I sat there, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps, my lips still bleeding. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, leaving behind a dull ache in my face and a sick feeling in my stomach. I reached for my phone before remembering it was still inside, probably shattered. I could hear her yelling from the doorway, but I couldn't make out the words. It didn't matter. I wasn't going back in there. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine rumbled to life, a low, steady sound that felt like the only solid thing in my world right now. My hands were still shaking. My entire body felt wired, like I was seconds away from either throwing up or completely breaking down. Where the hell was I supposed to go? It was late. Too late to show up at a friend's house unannounced. And even if I did, what would I say? Hey, my girlfriend just beat the shit out of me, mind if I crash? No. I could already picture their faces, the confusion, the awkward silence, the forced words. Man, that's crazy, or damn, what did you do? What did I do? I shook my head, gripping the wheel tighter. I put the car in drive and pulled away, her voice fading into the night behind me. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away. I drove for what felt like hours, but it was probably just minutes. Streetlights passed in a blur, the roads empty except for the occasional late-night driver. My face throbbed with every heartbeat, and I still hadn't wiped the blood off my lip. Eventually, I pulled into an empty parking lot behind a 24-hour gas station. The lights inside were harsh and sterile. A single employee visible behind the counter, leaning on their elbow, half asleep. I killed the engine and sat there, just sat there. My hands were still trembling. This wasn't the first time she hit me. It was just the first time I really let myself think about it. I leaned my head back against the seat, staring up at the ceiling of my car. The silence inside felt suffocating, but I couldn't bring myself to move. This wasn't the first time. That thought kept circling in my mind over and over. The first time had been easy to dismiss, just a slap during an argument, a bad night, a moment of anger. She apologized the next morning, cried in my arms, told me she didn't know what had come over her. I had believed her. Then it happened again, and again, and every time there was an excuse. I made her mad. I didn't listen. I didn't care enough. I was the problem. At some point I stopped fighting back. Not physically. I never laid a hand on her. But I stopped arguing, stopped pushing back against the way she twisted things. It was easier to let her win, easier to pretend like it wasn't that bad. But tonight was different. I exhaled slowly, my fingers running over my swollen lip. The parking lot was empty, except for my car and a few scattered pieces of trash blowing across the pavement. The fluorescent glow from the gas station sign flickered slightly, buzzing like a distant insect. I needed to clean myself up. I grabbed a hoodie from the back seat, pulling it on to cover my bare chest. My feet were still cold against the car's floor. I had nothing on but boxers, barely dressed enough to be walking into a public place, but I needed something. A towel, a bottle of water, something to make me feel human again. I forced myself to open the car door. The pavement was rough against my feet as I made my way to the gas station. The automatic doors slid open with a low whoosh, and the cashier barely glanced up from their phone. I went straight to the bathroom. The fluorescent light inside was brutal, making every bruise, every scratch, every hint of swelling stand out even more. I turned on the faucet and cupped my hands under the water, splashing it over my face. The cold sting helped clear my head, but it didn't wash away the reality of what had just happened. I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection. What the hell was I doing? How had I let it get this bad? I needed to leave. Not just tonight, for good. But even as the thought crossed my mind, something deep inside me hesitated. A sick, twisted part of me that still felt responsible. That still felt like maybe, just maybe, I was the problem. I shut my eyes and gritted my teeth. No, not this time. I wasn't going back. I took one last look at myself in the mirror. The swollen lip, the faint outline of fingerprints on my cheek, the exhaustion in my eyes. This was it, the moment where I had to make a choice. I turned away from the sink and walked out of the bathroom, past the rows of cheap snacks and energy drinks, past the cashier who barely acknowledged me. I stepped back into the cold night air, feeling more awake than I'd had in months. Sliding into my car, I stared at my phone's empty charger. My phone, broken, useless, was still back at the house. But I didn't need it. Not for this. I started the car, gripping the wheel with steady hands. I was done. Done with the screaming, the accusations, the bruises I pretended didn't exist. Done making excuses for someone who never made any for me. The road stretched out in front of me, dark and open, leading anywhere but back. And for the first time in a long time, I drove forward without looking in the rearview mirror.